was told in the previous edition, in his sadness, Wali Paidi sat asleep and dreamed of seeing all his friends carrying kerosene lamps. There was a bright light in each student's room because of the kerosene lamps they brought. While Wali Paidi's room did not shine, Wali Paidi lowered his head. He felt dirty and useless. "O Allah, I surrender myself to you. I am pleased with your provisions for me." Then suddenly there was a brighter light coming out of Wali Paidi's room. The light was so bright that the light coming out of the other students' rooms seemed to dim. Wali Paidi saw a very delicate hand holding a kerosene lamp coming out of his room. When it was in front of him, Wali Paidi looked up. Wali Paidi was so moved to see the one carrying the lamp. "Anta misbah is shuduri. O Rasulullah, Anta misbah is shuduri." Wali Paidi screamed. He saw the Prophet smiling at him, as if he was saying, "Don't be sad, I will guide you." The Prophet then sat beside the Wali Paidi and raised the kerosene lamp high. The light that radiated spread softly, illuminating the entire hut. The Wali Paidi woke up when the call to prayer was heard. The Wali Paidi's heart was filled with happiness. His peace was felt spreading throughout his body. His body became fresh and light. He still felt the coolness of the Prophet's smile on him. The next morning the Wali Paidi was called by the Kiai. After taking a shower and getting dressed neatly, the Wali Paidi visited the Kiai. He saw the Kiai was waiting for him in front of the Endialam. In front of him there was a round table made of teak wood. On it there were 2 cups of coffee, and there were 2 packs of Gudang Garamillo and G Samso cigarettes. The Kiai invited the Wali Paidi to sit down. "Drink your coffee," said the Kiai. "Yes," replied the Wali Paidi. The Kiai then took Gudang Garam cigarette and lit it. A minute later the smoke of cigarettes and coffee billowed around them. "That's G Samso your cigarette. Just light it," ordered the Kiai. "Inga," replied the guardian Paidi, then lit his cigarette. There was silence between them. The Kiai was silent. Occasionally he said the Tasbih sentence. The guardian Paidi just lowered his head. Then the Kiai said again to the guardian Paidi, "I was deliberately strict with you, so that you don't depend on me. I want you to depend more on Allah directly." The Kiai took a deep drag on his cigarette, then said again and again, "Later your position will be higher than mine. I don't allow you to join in learning that because you are more suited to studying the science of wisdom, but I'm not the one who taught it. Later your teacher from Tulungagung will teach you that." Wali Paidi nodded, even though his teacher openly said that his position would be higher in the future, in front of his teacher. Wali Paidi became more respectful. His heart was filled with a strong sense of humility towards his Kiai. "Make your dream last night a strength in your heart," said the Kiai briefly. Wali Paidi was a little surprised to hear his Kiai's words. It turned out that Kiai knew my dream last night, Wali Paidi's heart, and the characteristics of a wise man. The Kiai stopped. After taking a sip of his coffee, the Kiai continued his words again. "His heart never forgets Allah. His heart is filled with Allah. The chanting of dhikr that revolves in it," said the Kiai, then stood up to approach Wali Paidi. The Kiai put his hand on Wali Paidi's chest. "Fill your heart with Allah," said the Kiai. Wali Paidi's heart rumbled, his heart dhikr by itself. "Allah, Allah, Allah," continuously, whis. "Now it's time for you to clean the Endialam and Pondik," ordered the Kiai, then entered the Endialam. Wali Paidi stood up and moved from the Endialam to his room, took a broomstick and started sweeping the hut yard, and arranged the slippers of the students who were scattered in front of the room. Wali Paidi's heart continued to sing dhikr. Sometimes the sound of the broom when it was moved to the ground made a sound as if it was doing dhikr to accompany the dhikr of Wali Paidi. Since then, Wali Paidi has been so diligent and humble in serving the students. Wali Paidi's attitude of giving in and just obeying when told to order the students has made many students disrespectful to him. Once there was a student who was a Hafiz, memorized the Quran, teased the Wali Paidi very excessively, then suddenly his memorization was lost. The student who was a Hafiz was confused because his graduation exam was about to be tested and the graduation requirement was to memorize the 30 juz of the Quran. The incident of the loss of the student's memorization was finally reported to the Qi. Tell him to apologize to Paidi, and don't repeat the rudeness to Paidi again. If it is repeated, he could lose his memorization permanently, said the Qi. The Qi's answer was reported to the student who was a Hafiz, and with tears the student apologized to the Wali Paidi. The Wali Paidi was shocked when there was a student who asked, cried to him and asked for forgiveness for his mistake. Wali Paidi respectfully said, Salah nopo Gus, imboden wanton sing Salah, what's wrong Gus? There's nothing wrong. The student still cried in front of Wali Paidi, Inga I forgive you, said Wali Paidi even though he didn't understand what the problem was. And by the will of Allah the student's memorization gradually returned. It was true what Allah said, whoever is hostile to my guardian, I declare war on him. That's what happened to this Hafiz student. Allah did not accept his treatment of Wali Paidi, even though Wali Paidi felt it was normal. Since that incident, the students no longer dared to be rude to Wali Paidi. Instead they now considered Wali Paidi as the elder of the Pandik, the representative of the Qi in the Pandik. Wali Paidi acts normal. Every morning he still sweeps the hut yard and arranges the students' sandals. His heart remains normal. He doesn't feel great or inferior. For him, when he sweeps the hut yard and arranges the students' sandals, that's when he talks to Allah. Continue.